Hey guys, it's a lovely mid-February day here in Vernon. The snow is melting. It's time to get in the garden and do some spring cleanup. I'm going to show you how to prune Karl Forster grasses and the other perennial grasses. Some tips and tricks on how I can make it a little easier. I'm going to show you how to cut back herbaceous perennials, woody shrubs, hydrangeas, and just an overall cleanup and the tools that you'll need to do it. So here I have my trusty pruners. I've got a set of shears. Of course, I've got my gardening gloves. I've got some fertilizer for when I'm done. And then of course I've got some handy rakes for cleanup after. All right, let's get started with these Karl Forsters. So these Karl Forster grasses, they're a very popular low maintenance plant, drought resistant, deer tolerant, very popular in Vernon. You see them growing along the meridians. They're really great. They're fast establishing, hardy, drought resistant. These plants here are quite mature. They get a little bit tough to deal with trying to cut them down. So I have a little trick. I use duct tape. I actually wrap around the plant and then I cut from the base. So you're looking to cut these grasses down to about 1 to 2 inches right from the ground, right across. Some people will cut them down in the late fall, but I like the long-standing interest that they give throughout the winter. So I cut them down early spring as soon as the snow is gone. I'm going to show you how to do that now. I just take a little bite at a time here, work my way in from one side. Now, duct tape keeps everything together, a lot less mess to clean up. There we go, one final cleanup. There, that grass is ready to sprout. Give it a few weeks and you'll see fresh growth coming up. Hi guys, welcome to my home. This is my perennial garden. I'm going to show you how I prune back all my perennials and shrubs every early spring, just as soon as the snow is gone. I've got a lot of herbaceous perennials that die back in the ground. This is the liatris here. Herbaceous perennials are soft foliage type perennials that go completely dead in the winter and live in the root system. They'll begin to resprout once we get some warmth again. So everything that's dead here is not going to regrow. As well as I've got a daylily over here. Anything brown and dead, throw it in the bucket. I've got an iris as well. You can see this iris is already starting to sprout here. This is a variegated variety here, very unique one. To my left is another perennial. Well, this is an evergreen perennial. This is a Helleborus. As you can see, there's still lots of life in this foliage. It only needs to be pruned back to shape. So we'll leave that alone. Moving on to woody shrubs, things like your buddleia, your butterfly bush, got deutzia. They need to be pruned to shape. You can tell they're hardwood, hardy stems. They live in the plant itself, not just in the root system. They just need a well-rounded prune. Of course, any old flower buds, they come off. Just an overall shape, that's all they need. Next, the deutzia. Come up underneath here and give it a bit of a haircut. Hairdressers would make great gardeners. A little bit of pruning off the top. It'll be much more uniform when they sprout in the spring. Behind me, I've got a Japanese maple. There's a couple small ones here. Once again, it lives in the trunk and the branches. Just needs a light pruning to shape. Anything dead, anything crispy needs to come off. Otherwise, they can be left alone. Some people wonder if their Japanese maple didn't make it through the winter. One way to tell is just to take your fingernail, scratch away. As you can see there, you can see it's green. It's green, it's wet, it's moist, it's pliable. If you scratch it and it's dry, it's brown, it feels almost hollow, there's no life left in it. Back here I've got a peony. This is another herbaceous perennial that dives back into the ground. Any perennial grasses. Also cut right down. This is actually a Hydrangea. It almost looks like a grass, but it gets little blue flowers on it. Last but not least, a quick rake over, spread the mulch out again. Those leaves that have fallen, any other debris. Keep your garden clean and healthy and free of disease. You don't want to pick up all these leaves, decaying material, or else later in the summer you'll get insects like earwigs come around, multiply underneath them. All right, moving on. I'm going to show you how to prune back one of my hydrangeas here. There's many different types of hydrangeas. Some bloom on old growth, some bloom on new growth. So that meaning new growth blooming hydrangeas, you cut right back to the ground. Things like your Annabelle, your mountain hydrangeas, and your paniculata hydrangeas, all the way down to the ground. They're very aggressive and fast growing. Other types of hydrangeas, mop-head hydrangeas, they bloom on old growth, so you leave them alone or you prune them to shape, a nice shape, maybe 2-3 feet, depending on what you want. I'm going to prune back my mountain hydrangea right now. Of course, it's not very big, I only planted it last year, but it does need to be cut back to the ground. It does bloom on new wood. Here's a question I get asked a lot. How do you prune your lavender? Do you prune your lavender? Lavender is an evergreen perennial. It needs to be pruned. The old flower stems, they die back. They don't grow again. So it needs to be pruned back down to the evergreen part of the lavender, the foliage. And it just needs a little rounding, nice little rounding shape. If you let them get too out of hand, they get a little bit weedy, they get tall, and they fall over. They're dead inside. That's not what you want. You want to keep them fairly contained, nice and compact. All plants need food. Without food, they're not going to grow, they're not going to do well for you. We've got our own perennial vine fertilizer here. We package this ourselves. It's specific for the Okanagan. It doesn't release as fast in the heat. It's great to apply right now in the early spring, then again in the summer. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So, grasses, perennials, shrubs and trees, they'll all appreciate a little bit of this stuff. It's a granular, it's a slow release product. It'll release over a period of about 1 to 2 months. So I'm going to put a handful in here in the grass. Moving on to the perennials. Hellebores, of course, just give him a little handful, a 1/4 cup. Iris, work some into the soil, around your drip lines especially. Little buddleias. This is slow release nitrogen, so it's not as susceptible to burn as other fertilizers. Trees, add a couple small handfuls. It's as simple as that. All right, guys, get out there, prune back your perennials and shrubs, do some yard cleanup, give them a handful of fertilizer. They'll thank you later.